Okay, we will now try our 7th recording of the speech. So I want you to imagine being at a baseball park, and you have your hot dog in your hand and a pop in the other, and you look out to the game, and you realize you see something and you can't believe your eyes. You think, is it a bird? Is it a plane? Could it be Superman? Well, then you realize it's just Pete Rose. Pete Rose, in typical fashion, about 2 to 3 feet above the ground, flying horizontal, arms stretched out as he's about to slide into third base. Now, if you're like me and feel that Pete Rose's raw talent alone should get him into the Hall of Fame, you'll probably appreciate what I'm going to talk to you about today. Last year, I had the privilege of being in Cooperstown, New York, and as I walked around the Hall of Fame, I have to admit I really wanted to see Pete Rose there. I was reminiscent of a conversation I had with Pete a few years back in Las Vegas, Nevada. We were both sitting in a sports memorabilia store talking about the game we loved so very much. I have to admit at that point, as I talked to him and saw his passion, I really felt like he should be in the Hall of Fame, probably more than he even did himself. So after hearing what I have to say today, I encourage you to support me as well as many, many others that you would like to have him be seen in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. Now, there are 3 main reasons and issues that I think everybody should understand. The first issue is Pete Rose, the gambler, had plenty of problems, but it didn't take away the fact that he was one of the best players to ever play in the game of baseball. The second issue is Pete Rose was one of the most passionate players ever and has one of the best scorecards of any player in the major leagues. The third issue is Pete Rose held, the question is Pete Rose held to a higher standard? Pete Rose has met the requirements and should be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. So I first want to explain why Pete Rose entering the Hall of Fame is so controversial. In Pete's own words, he said, "I blew it. I should have never gambled in baseball." And those words have haunted him for the last 20 plus years. He was a gambler. At ESPN.com, it said that he was often found at the tracks, but in 1989, rumors started that he was gambling on the game he loved, baseball. And he even gambled on games that he played in or games that he coached in. Now, he admits that gambling on the great game of baseball was a mistake. He wishes he could take it back. It should never be ignored, however, that at the same time, his stats shouldn't be ignored. This brings up the second thing I want to discuss with you. You will have to look long and hard to find anyone else in the game of baseball to match up to Pete Rose's scorecard and his passion for the game. Pete Rose holds more records than any other player in the history of Major League Baseball. Sparky Anderson once said, "The man I marvel at is the one that's in there day after day and night after night and still puts up the figures on the board." Yes, I'm talking about Pete Rose. Close quote. So I want to talk to you just for a moment about some of the major records that Pete Rose holds in the major leagues. So first of all, he has the most career hits. He also has the most career games played. He has the most career at-bats, the most career singles, and that is based on a normal hitter. But Pete Rose was also a switch hitter, so he could bat either right or left. He also holds the most records for the most career runs by a switch hitter, the most career doubles by a switch hitter. He has the most career walks by a switch hitter, the most career total bases by a switch hitter. He's played the most seasons of 200 or more hits. He also has the most consecutive seasons of 100 or more hits. He has the most consecutive seasons with 600 more at-bats. He also has the most seasons with 150 or more games played. He has the record for playing in the most winning games. Now this one's kind of exciting as he's the only player in Major League history to play more than 500 games at 5 different positions. So he wasn't just a good first baseman or a good second baseman or outfielder or whatever. He played at 5 different positions and over 500 games in each position. And this is at the highest level of baseball. What's really neat is he played in 17 All-Star games. Now, that's not really that big of a deal, But when you consider that he also played in 5 different positions in the All-Star games, that's an amazing feat. He also had 300% or better batting, not just in 1 year, but for every year of his 24-year career. It's amazing. He's an awesome baseball player. Now, Pete Rose's stats are amazing, but more importantly, his passion for the game was second to none, and that is why he earned the nickname Charlie Hustle. Now, it's not clear how he got the nickname of Charlie Hustle. It was either one of 2 events. One time, the ball was clearly going out of the ballpark. But Pete Rose ran as fast as he could in the outfield, jumped off the wall as high as he could, even though he knew there was no possible way he was going to get to this ball. He wanted to put forth his best effort every time that he was trying to go for the ball. The second thing that might have been the reason he got the nickname was, in his rookie year, he took a walk. And instead of walking to first base, he ran at full speed all the way to first base. Either way, Whitey Ford's nickname described him well. It was also Pete Rose's hustle and tenacity that helped him circle the bases to score against Ken Johnson. Now, this was a neat game. Ken Johnson, this game, threw a no-hitter. Now, that's a feat that's amazing in itself. For a pitcher to go a whole game without any hits is crazy cool. What was ironic, though, is he actually walked Pete Rose. He then stole second base. He then stole third base, and then scored on an error. So unfortunately for Ken Johnson, Pete Rose caused him to throw the first no-hitter and yet still lose the game. Now, if Pete Rose is kept out of the Hall of Fame, it could look like he's held to a higher standard to many other players. Just last year, we had 2 very controversial members of the Baseball Hall of Fame included on the ballot, to enter the Hall of Fame. Both Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were guilty of using performance-enhancing drugs. Drugs actually change the way you play. It changed the way you perform, unlike, in my opinion, gambling. Now, some might say gambling will change the way you play. For instance, if Pete Rose bet against the game, then gambling, in fact, would have made him play worse. But if you were to look long and hard at Pete Rose's record, you will know there's no possible way Pete could have thrown a game. As stated on the National Baseball Hall of Fame website, in order to qualify to the Hall of Fame, a player needs to have played for at least 10 years and have been retired for 5 or more. A 6-member screening committee then prepares the ballot and the vote. Selected players remain eligible for 15 years. Well, clearly, Pete Rose fits the requirements. Stats are not the only thing that suggests a good argument for Pete Rose to be inducted. It was his passion in his play and his work ethic that inspired others, and, most importantly, his pure hustle. In summary, acknowledge that Pete Rose was not perfect. He did a very disgraceful thing. In his words, I blew it. He did not, however, put weights in his bat, or use steroids to gain strength. He gambled. The Hall of Fame is full of players who did those things. Pete Rose should also be in the Hall of Fame. Please join with me and give credit where credit's due. Pete Rose is clearly one of the most talented people to have ever played the Baseball Hall of Fame, and in my opinion, should be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame.